A sword either can protect or it can cut away. So it can pierce through illusion, or it can protect us in an important way from that which we don't want to have in our environment. But it also can form as a false protection that keeps us in illusion, keeps us in a trance, and prevents us from seeing reality. So, as I was reflecting on this, I realized that one of the very essential aspects of awakened living, of spiritual evolution, is to never abdicate your authority to anybody else. So, I may be able to offer many things today. In excuse me, some of you have been following me or attending retreats, satsangs, the live meditations. And you know that the way that I work is very experiential. I'm very much pointing at something that's already inside of you for you to discover this for yourself and to allow that to unfold, to blossom, to inform. So I've decided that the way that I'm going to offer this program, call it a satsang or meditation, is in two parts. And in this first part, I'm going to give an overview through story and just by speaking about some very important parts of being divine and human. So, not only spiritual awakening, but how to attend to humanity. You know, the essential elements of being a human. And then I'd like to call us all back together again after you've listened and had some time to reflect on what you've heard, and also in your own life, in your own spiritual unfoldment, in your own healing journey. And then to be able to fully engage with this within yourself and to come up with what are the essential 7 swords for you? What are your swords to claim? To be able to claim these in a way that it's not something that I'm giving to you or somebody else is giving to you, as if there's somebody outside of you that has the answers, or as if somebody knows better than you what are the tools and resources for your journey that are going to assist you more than anything else. Now, I always suggest that if there's anybody that's really in deep sorrow or in suffering, that to reach out to a teacher or a therapist or to somebody that you resonate with that has tools and skills to assist you to do that. That sometimes we do need assistance, and teachers, therapists are really just assisting. There isn't anybody that can do your inner work for you. There isn't anybody that can claim your power, claim your compassion, claim your deepest knowing inside. Nobody can give that to you. You need to claim it for yourself. So I thought in this first part, it would be very good to just look at what is awakening and look at the essential elements in healing. Because as we know, one of the most challenging aspects of evolution, of the evolution of consciousness, because it's always evolving, but it's when we learning how to take our deepest realization into every aspect of our life. How does it live? How does it transform on the inside and the outside? Because awakening really is, it's a shift from a trance, from a sleepy state of unconsciousness about who you are. So awakening is, can be a glimpse or can be quite profound, but it's really waking up out of a sense of separation and feeling the totality of who you are. of being able to resource within yourself that very quiet space of calm, of peace, of openness. There's a beautiful expression from the Gospel of Thomas that asks, where somebody asks, "Who are you?" And he responds, "Openness, openness." So when we think about a sword, a sword in and of itself can serve as protection. But let's think about a sword as always being double-edged. There's two sides of it. So in this program, I want to suggest that there's choice. So we always have choice. We have choice until we no longer have choice. So here, let's wake up to the possibility that everybody has a choice. And that choice is to cling to the false, to illusion, to use the sword to move away from that which is not wanted, or to clear the way to see reality as it is. Now, if we only have the one side, if we only want to not suffer, if we only want to move away, if we only want to protect, then we're missing the most powerful aspect of the sword, and that is to cut away, to clear away, to see reality as it is, and to use these swords that will unfold here today, and as you reflect, will unfold for you to claim, to use them as the most powerful healing agent, to use them in a way that allows you to remain as openness. In every part of who you are in your humanity, the mind, in the heart, and at the gut, where there's the greatest stability. So all of this coming together, working together, not in a linear way, not in a theoretical way, not in a literal way where we just take the words, but what are the words pointing to clear, to bring us into alignment with our highest good, with clarity of mind, with openness of heart, and with this great stability at the base of the body that roots us in the here and now, so that we can be unwavering in who we truly are, not in a false identity, not in a needing to protect something, which is really a form of resistance. And resistance arises often, especially when we're about to enter something very deep and profound. So really all resistance is the fear of that which has not yet been explored. So we're going to explore together many things. And the trick is always in using words. So to not hang your hat on the words that are being used. And let's just see what unfolds and where it takes you. So I always like to begin with a meditation, just to bring us all here together and opening up deeper listening, a way of attuning to what's being spoken about beneath the words. What's actually listening, what's actually speaking. So go ahead and just close your eyes for a little bit. We'll have a short meditation. And this program will last, about an hour to an hour and a half. It depends on on how much feels like it needs to be spoken about. But just to know, if you're not here for the entire program till the end, that there will be a follow-up program on January 27th, which is also a Saturday. And I want to invite you to reflect on what's been said today and in your own life as human divine, your spiritual unfoldment, your healing journey, those places where you get stuck or tripped up, and what has served you and what doesn't serve you. So that you're not only taking it from me, but I want to hear back from you, what you come up with as your 7 swords for awake living. And then I'll take whatever it is you send to me through my website. Just use a contact form and send me, just something just short and brief and concise. What is clarifying itself in you as a sword. So I've already given you one, which is an important one, is never to abdicate your authority to anything outside of yourself. So right along what comes with that is the full responsibility for ourselves. There isn't anybody that can do it for us. So, we're kind of jumping off there. And in the meditation is another pointer. The being able to take a pause and to listen to those quiet, soft places inside, to be able to resource yourself in a way that is kind, soft, and compassionate. So close your eyes, and for now, just attune to the breath. Now, when we meditate with our whole body. Especially in an exploration like this, it's a full-bodied, because we're essentially speaking about embodiment. So let the breath flow in the body, inviting all of you to be here. So here's a time to set aside any distractions from the external world and letting this be a time for you. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel the base of the body. Inviting all of you to be here, to be explored without a commentary, without a right or a wrong. Just being here. Letting the mind relax, not by pushing anything away, not by looking for anything in particular, but just giving a spacious quality of openness, the openness that's already here, letting that openness implode in the mind. Noticing and allowing. If there's any part in you that is pushing, efforting, just notice that. and give it space to be here. Let your shoulders relax. Let there be space in the neck. Let there be space in the voice box. Let there be breadth and width in the torso. Let the breastbone be lifted. Let there be space around the heart. The heart and the body have such a history. All of human experience is contained within the heart. The full range of being a human, everything from bliss to sorrow, there are surface emotions that may mask the deeper sensations and feelings in the heart. So whatever is here for you, let it be here. Sometimes the surface emotions feel more heavy, more dense. But as you allow them to be here, without making them wrong or pushing them away, just accepting that there's a full range of human experience and that we can also choose to soften and resource, make contact with those softer, quiet, more tender feelings, deeper beneath the surface. Not by doing anything in particular, just remaining as openness, being more interested in the actuality of who you are beneath the surface. Beneath blame, beneath resentment, beneath anger, beneath depression, beneath anxiety, beneath moving as quickly as possible away from the places that we have not yet explored. Stay here, soften, let yourself be tender, let yourself be quiet. Let yourself soften, then even more, so you come closer to you. The greatest intimacy begins with you. As you soften, you may feel sensations in your body, perhaps fluttering, perhaps other spaces that open, perhaps places that get a little tight, or you're noticing perhaps for the first time. So be the noticing, be the wider space of noticing. So you're contacting something very quiet in you. You're resourcing a deeper aspect of you. Without a need to engage right now the content. At the same time, we're not pushing anything away. So your posture is one of receptivity. A receptivity that is not on the surface. It's a receptivity that cuts deeply to your core, to the core essence of you. It's actually a receptivity that is listening so finely to the essence of you that has been here forever and will be here forever. So it's a soft cutting, a cutting that melts, melts away any holding, any defense. Allows you to listen to the essence of you, your goodness, your beauty, your aliveness. It doesn't push anything away. Just being here allows this reality of you, this love of you, to be you could call it the great healing agent or the medicine that transmutes or heals anything that still is in conflict or feels toxic, heavy, or dark. So you're entering, falling into your love, your light, your goodness. Let this root you into, or as, this universal connectivity to all things, to all of humanity. So that as you continue to fine tune, to claim your sword, that you become a benefit to all of humanity. So your evolution is not as an individual, it's as an essence. As an essence that has become conscious of itself. This is to be awake, an awakeness that never ends and that has a multiplicity of aspects to it, like a jewel that's multi-dimensional, that has the capacity to shine in a multiplicity of ways. So not to think that, just feel, feel, feel. What is shining? Feel the shining, where the shining originates, and what does it shine upon? And recognize that this shining is you, from you, within you, for you to see reality as it is. For what needs to clarify itself, what needs to clear away, and what false protection isn't serving, and to let that clear. So this is where the swords come into play. Can can be very helpful. Just notice how it is to perceive from openness. From this wide space of allowance that is deeply rooted and connected to all things. Okay, so you can continue along with eyes opened or eyes closed. So, how did the number 7 come? 7 is a very powerful universal number that's been used throughout the ages to represent many things. There's the 7 sorrows of Mary, the mother of Jesus. There's the 7 thresholds of awakening, different thresholds that we all must journey. At each threshold, there is a challenge and a gift. And this is depicted very clearly in the journey of Christ. There's actually a book about it called The Son of God. Maybe it's the Son of Man. But it's really goes through these thresholds. And there was a workshop or an intensive given by Adyashanti one time on this many years ago when I was an early student of his. And there's everybody's awake here. There's the 7 archangels. There's 777 representing Sophia. So 7 is a very potent number, and the 7 actually represents spiritual seeking, but not a spiritual seeking for a place to land, but a spiritual seeking, a seeking of reality. So here when we're talking, about swords, as I said in the beginning, using the sword to cut away what is no longer needed. So another one that I'm going to present before I talk about something that's super important in our humanity is that my daughters are in the background. I just have to say that. So there's a tad of distraction happening as they're kind of calling. But I made a couple of notes here because I figured that this would be happening. Okay, when people are suffering, it's very natural and it's a good thing that to not want to suffer. But that's one side of the sword, is to not want something. And when we're only on that side of the sword, we're pushing away. We're saying, not this, like neti neti, which is half of the journey, and it's not a bad thing. But as we evolve, there comes a time when we need to not only not only want to not suffer, but want to know what is reality, what is the truth. And this is what the seven represents. So it's a seeking for reality, for truth, not just to get away from something. Now, in the work that I do, as you know, I work as a therapist, and I worked as a therapist for many, many years. And I'm trained in a variety of different modalities, all of them that are great resources to have. But when we're only trying to get away from suffering, when we just don't want to suffer, we can dig into and go from one modality to the next, one teacher to the next, one teaching to the next. And we'll continue to spin and spin and spin and loop around. And our perception, or our capacity to benefit from these different techniques and resources, will be very limited. It will only take us so far, and it will take us so far for just a little while, almost like as if we're putting a Band-Aid on something. It won't really be the solution. And the reason for that is that if we have not come to a place of wanting to know the truth, wanting to know reality, like wanting to really see life as it is, without a layover of the things that we use as protection, whether that be blame, our questions, why is this suffering happening to me? And all those kinds of questions that maintain an identity as a victim. And really what they're layers of masking emotions, resentment, blame, rage, um, rage and the different ways that it acts out. Rage can act out externally, meaning toward other people, but often for many, it's turned inside. And then that will show up as a depression. So the important thing to recognize as a human being, and there's the full spectrum of humanity that is coming into consciousness, that is born out of consciousness and is returning home to consciousness, and maybe has gotten a little lost along the way. Now, in order to be found, to find yourself, to no longer be lost, we have to be able to make contact with this aspect of who we are that deeply cares. We have to choose, so I'm offering it right now as a choice. I'm sure you've heard this before, but this is, excuse me, this is what makes the difference between people who come out of suffering and heal and those that don't. Those that remain in a loop, remain lost, remain on the surface of life, remain in a story that fuels masking emotions, the surface emotions. But within each and every one of us, as I did in the meditation, and why I began with that meditation, is a quietness, is a place of peace, place of deep, deep calm. So we have to be willing to soften and to access that place inside of us. That's the turning point. That's the turning point. Now, you may have had at a variety of different times in your life glimpses of reality, aha moments of awakening, shifts in your consciousness. And that's wonderful. But if you have not yet dropped into that space behind any sense of protection, behind blame, behind resentment, behind guilt, behind rage, behind all the ways in which we point our finger out and say this, it's this or that, or you or your fault. So all of that is in opposition to a foundational principle of taking full responsibility for your life. To allow yourself to evolve into a space to want to know the truth, to want to know reality, so much more than to have your questions answered about why did this or that happen to me. To challenge whether you call it God or a higher power or the universe or the establishments, be them educational, religious, or cultural, and demand to know why they operate the way they do or the way that you perceive them to. So all of these questions and all of this kind of going out keeps us on the surface and prevents us from experiencing these deeper, softer, more tender aspects of who we are as humans. It takes us into our humanity. And let me give you a pointer that may make this more clear, and something that I'm sure you resonate with is if we lost something or felt or perceived that something has been lost or taken away from us, whether it be, something in early childhood, some kind of violation, or some missed experience, something that we had hoped would happen, or a part of us, a perceived part of who we are taken away, missed. Somehow just like having the carpet pulled out from under your feet. And with that is a grief. There's a sorrow. Whenever we lose something, there's a grief. And for a loss. Yeah, so not just on the outside, that's one thing. When a relative, a friend, a loved one dies and there's closeness to that person. So there's a grief. But I'm talking about something that's much more intimate. The intimacy of you, something that at one time there's an early cellular memory of remembering the closeness, the belonging, the sense of belonging to yourself, and feeling that somehow that was violated or taken away, that something happened. It's often not conscious, because this is something, for some people, it's incredibly rough, let's say hard, difficult, where they've had a very difficult kind of upbringing and tremendous amount of, let's call it, abuse or violence, and and then a behavior or a way of being in life is acted out, and it becomes almost like, a personality, a character trait, to behave a particular way. And it's masking, so it's really a living on the surface, and beneath that is a grief, a part that feels really wounded and hurt, and it's intimate. So until we soften and allow ourselves to become really vulnerable to these more hidden places, more tender, so tender, we're going to remain lost around the surface, or we're going to loop. We're going to loop in our stories, in our questions, in our blame, in our resentment, in our pointing it out and asking something outside to change, to be different. But here, as we choose to soften beneath these masking, these darker, denser, heavier emotions, into our vulnerability, into the most intimate space, then we can feel this tenderness. Excuse me. And what this tenderness tells us is that, we wouldn't have been, there wouldn't be any anger, any rage, any resentment if we didn't love who we are. So it's a self-love. It's a love for our essence. It's a love for who we actually are. And if you didn't have self-love or self-compassion or deep, deep tenderness, for some people it shows up as a very almost overwhelming empathy when they're witnessing or with others who have suffered but are at that moment of opening and being very vulnerable and coming into a very, very tender space. People who are touched by that are actually touching into this deep, deep sense of love and care that we all carry within us, that is just beneath that grief over the sense of having lost something, or having had something taken away, or having something wanted and perceiving it to be missed, to be lost. So in the confusion of that, in the confusion of however the upbringing unfolds, there can be a layering of surface emotions. And all of this, if we don't touch in, like we need to make contact with this tenderness, with this vulnerability, with the most intimate spaces of who we are, then we're touching into our healing agent. This is the healing agent. This is the capacity to heal. And the more that we touch into it, the more we widen in our capacity to heal. And this capacity to heal, the human condition, to really, what I want to say, to bring the greatest medicine to our humanity. This goes hand in hand with our spiritual unfoldment, right? Because otherwise, still our awakening is something that may feel like it comes and goes because it hasn't landed, it hasn't rooted itself yet in the essence, this deeper essence of who you are, that comes out of a deep care, out of the deepest compassion for humanity as a whole, So it takes us out of this sense of being an individual, of having a separate sense of self, someone who is isolated, someone who doesn't belong. And then what you know concocts itself from there. I hope that, I'm trying to say this in a few different ways to really get it. It's almost like, it's visceral. It's an embodiment. It's to really come down into the body, because, there's words here and there could be a certain degree of understanding. Just like we don't meditate with our minds. We don't get this with our minds. It's something we need to experience directly for ourselves. So the positive, very positive aspect of suffering is that you don't want to. And it's a good thing that you don't, because it's that not wanting this, which is the deeper voice of knowing, this deeper compassion inside, that is at the same time calling, like, okay, you don't want to suffer. All right. But do you want to know reality? Do you want to know the truth about you? Yes, of course, you want to push all suffering away. I want nothing to do with it. I don't want to visit that again. Whatever conflict, whatever negativity, whatever upset, hurt happened in the life. But can you stop long enough to choose to feel into your body, to make contact, to resource yourself with a peace, with this love? If you didn't get upset, it would mean that you didn't love, but you got upset. You saw, suffering happened, or whatever happened, to whatever degree, it doesn't matter. That's telling you that what you have inside of yourself is love, is deep care. So can you resource that? Say yes, because you can. It's a vulnerability. It's a choosing to be intimate with yourself. It's a choosing to let the questions rest. The why. All the why questions that really bring us into a sense of victimhood. Being a victim. You're not a victim. So let those questions rest. It's like notice, the strong, darker emotions, that sometimes can feel so very heavy and dense that we may not see a way out at all in that moment. And not to worry about that, but that is the time when you may need to reach out, and please do reach out for something that you resonate with, a tool or a resource, a teacher, maybe a therapist. But know that that teacher, that therapist, or whatever it might be, can't do it for you, but they can remind you and they can assist. But in the end, it's always up to us. So we use whatever tools, whatever resources we can on the outside. And if we're not seeing and feeling an immediate benefit from that, we may have to, choose a different resource. But we have to check at the same time that Are we resisting anything? So this is a technique that I use often with almost everybody I ever work with, whether it be in meditation or therapy or my retreats. We're always checking to see, is there any aspect that's resisting? And we want to give space for that resistance, because all that resistance is a fear of that which has not yet been explored. Has not yet been explored, you know? So are you willing to explore the totality of you? Not just that which might be passing by on the surface. Or maybe it feels like it isn't passing by, that there's a stuckness, you know? But in that stuckness, if you go to a resource, a teacher, something on the outside, you better be sure they're not stuck and that they can actually open, a door, open a window for you to see outside of it. That they're strong enough in their own presence, in their own essence. They've come long enough, far enough along in their own healing, in their own awakening journey, because nobody can take you where they haven't gone themselves. So if they haven't explored their own darkness, if they haven't, looked up under every stone, you need to look in every cranny. You need to look in all the dark places. You need to have grieved, whatever perceived loss has happened along the way, to recover yourself, to recover the essence of you that is already here. And when I say recover, I don't mean to add on something anew, but to use these swords to clear away, to clear away unnecessary protection. The protection that is a masking emotion or a masking story, a masking belief, or a hope, or an idea that there's a savior somewhere that will do it for me. So this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. This is what we're pointing at. The remembering that if you didn't care about yourself, if you didn't have self-compassion and love, then you would never have been upset or suffered or have resentment, played victim. You wouldn't have. All of this is an indication of your essence. So let the grief pour itself out. Let the grief empty. Let it empty, let it empty. And as it's emptying, we want to be sure that we don't re-hook into an interpretation about it, make a conclusion, or pretend that we know, as soon as we know, think that we know, what I really want to say, without saying too much to get you thinking, is we just stay out of the mind. It's just not a good neighborhood to hang out. And you can tell that because as grief is emptying out, as you're really feeling your tenderness, you start to get top heavy again, and there might be a critique or a judgment or interpretation or some kind of conclusion where those questions start to activate again, or if so-and-so would never, or if this or that, all of the ifs, and then that presents a sense of doubt. So we're still progressing, that's natural for that to happen. But just notice that and give space for that to be there. But let yourself continue to empty, to empty, to empty, to empty. Yeah. I speak about this and want to because of the different experiences I've encountered in my own life, of course. I wouldn't have this interest if I like many people, had a fairly good degree of dysfunction, of conflict, of pain and sorrow in my early development, which somehow I was blessed with this interest, this curiosity, this seeking to know reality, to know the truth. So I didn't really hang out in it for too long, but I have I resonate. It's something that can't be forgotten. It's like the human condition. It's like you're always a human, always divine, always human. So this is what allows us to really connect as a larger family of all being in this together. So it's important, rather than to just focus on um, the divine aspects of who we are. They're a given. That's what we're actually talking to at the base of healing is your essence as the healing agent. So this is where everything meets at the ground. And I think I said in my introduction that these 7 swords, they all essentially work together, not in a linear fashion, but they all come together. It's like each one has a root, that is rooted in the base of your being, that grounds you and anchors you here in the universe, in the universality, in the collectiveness of all of who we are, not just here in this dimension, but in every dimension, with the planets, with the earth, with everything that we've been gifted here with. So I want to take a look just to see if there's anything that I didn't cover, because it's just about time to end. But I made a few notes. And this, like I said, there'll be a follow-up program on this because I really want to hear from you. I want to hear, what have you found? What are you claiming? What are you choosing as a sword to live awake? To live from your essence and to empty out, to clear away what is not needed. I had this beautiful dream not that long ago, and it felt in the dream, the body was asleep, but the dreaming state was happening. And it felt like it went on for a very long time. And all it was an empty room. It was this big, huge, empty room. And I was the empty room. There was nothing happening in it. And since that dream, it feels like it's been really intense in this life. This life is like anything that isn't cleared. It's like, any residual aspect of my humanity and the humanity that is living with me, everything I come in contact with is clearing. It's clearing, and just it feels like it's happening like a sword. It's like, shoo, 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 because as you utilize the most powerful sword, which is your essence, living from here, it fine-tunes and clarifies all the others. So, they may feel like they're sharp, but behind it, as you resource this tenderness, this self-compassion, this self-love, these swords can be quick and sharp and very discerning, but at the same time, it's like it's fierce grace. It's love. It's love, doing what love does. It doesn't hold anybody or anything hostage. There's no place for being a victim, no place whatsoever. So in the same way that this is another aspect of the double-edged sword, in one sense it's soft, and in the other sense it's sharp, like fire. It can burn, but there's always both. There has to be both working together. The tenderness, the softness, the deeply connecting with your vulnerability, with any residual grief over that sense of something being lost or taken away or wounded. Let that grief happen, and that will root you. in a dynamic that will influence the totality of the energetics of your life in all directions. So I was going to say that I also received an email, several emails, and I hope that I receive more. I'm not going to necessarily respond to them about this program. What I'll do is I'll use your emails about this program for the next program, so that we're kind of collectively, and I want to hear what your swords are, what you're claiming, what you're choosing to use as a great resource that comes out of the essence of you, because that's what needs to be contacted first. Connect with that. I'm looking for this email. Yeah, it takes courage. It takes courage to choose reality. To choose reality rather than just to want to not suffer, but to want to know reality. So I am going to see if I can end with just a little bit here. Okay, I found it on my computer. All right. Okay, this is a healing dream. I dream I am in a little satsang group and I am with a young girl whose hair is in lots of tight plaits. I think that means braids, held together with rubber bands. 2 of my awakening women friends are in the group as well. The woman giving the satsang says that she knows me from somewhere. I ask the little girl to sit on a cushion in front of me so I can take out her braids. I say to one of my friends that I want to do that because she looks like a street girl, someone who's homeless. I'm about to start doing this when there is a really loud electric buzz. She's referring to this as mind. I get up to help sort it out and follow the wire of the sound machine back to the socket and unplug it. Then I say, oh, the little white fox has got out now, and go outside to look for her. When I go outside, I meet a little fawn with an unusually robust body who lives on the land there. She says the dream feels very clear in its message. Dreams are very informative. She says, thank you so much for guiding me back into my body where there is such a strong impulse to stay out when trauma is triggered. This fight, flight, freeze. And then she says, if you have any guidance about working further, I would appreciate that. And she's watching this satsang, I hope. But everything that I just spoke about will support that. I do have other videos directly talking with trauma, but I think that this point of coming in contact with your love, like trauma is like a huge interruption. It's huge and it's shocking. And all of us have that. There isn't anyone who escapes trauma. But the trauma can, that's also in our neurology. So the trauma requires even a greater degree of softness and safety, and often in the beginning requires an external, almost like a resonant board. Someone that can reflect back to you and can be your ground. Just like that unplugging of the plug. Someone who might help you, and you're pretty far along with this, but to help unplug that electricity, because often that's what trauma can feel like in the body, and it feels like something's just taking over. So to be able to go to somebody who is skilled and can help you unplug. But so that's the safety part of it, to feel, to create an environment of safety for yourself. And that's a healthy protection. Safety is a very different kind of protection than the masking emotions that I was talking about. So safety is important, and that's an element that that's something I really try to facilitate in my sessions and on my retreats, to create a very soft and safe place to land. Now, for trauma, that's necessary. For drama, it's necessary. So there's one more thing I want to end with. I have 3 children, well, 2 actually, that are here right now, and there's a lot going on in my house. So pulling it all together. But I want to end with just saying, something that I wrote about resistance in case I didn't say it and don't want to forget it. Resistance is simply fear of the unexplored. When in the vicinity of truth, most experience fear. It's unknown. Truth is unknown. Can't be known by the senses. It's larger than you, larger than the little me, larger than any drama. We need resistance to feel separate. The great emptiness of being is the greatest power. No need to get rid of a sense of self. The sense of self is not the self. There is no solid, separate entity.